Greetings. Welcome to a new episode of Art Matters. I'm your host, Wayne Quackenbush, and today I'll be interviewing two artists, one from Rhode Island originally and one from Massachusetts. And let's start out with introducing an old friend and colleague, Casey Sylvia, also known as Casey Silver.
Thanks for having me, Wayne. Appreciate it.
One half of the comic book duo 80% Studios.
That's right.
And we know that you've been touring the United States like some kind of rock star.
A little bit.
Promoting your books.
Yeah.
And let's just say you're a comic book artist, a colorist, right?
The colorist, a storyteller first and foremost.
Yep.
My whole life has been telling stories, and it has been influenced by stories. A huge part is the annex and finding stories there, things that you passed to me that then ended up me on my
it's all
creative
sequential
journey.
Art and storytelling, right?
Exactly.
You grew up on comic books.
Exactly.
I've known you since you were 8 years old, and that was a few decades ago.
I know.
And,
it was quite a while ago.
Very much influenced by, as we were just talking about, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep.
And I never could tell them apart,
Yeah,
especially when they were in black and white. Right?
You were probably a little bit past the age range on that.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, the Ninja Turtles, I pretty much learned how to read on black and white Turtles comics.
Yeah.
And never really looked back. I'm about as old as the Turtles.
Yeah.
And even our name, 80% Studios, kind of comes from the Turtles a little bit.
Well, you can tell that story.
Yeah, where basically our friend in Seattle knows like real artists and stuff, and he works for Nickelodeon, stuff like that. So we get a chance to try out for the Ninja Turtles, the cartoon, and
That would be storyboarding.
That would be storyboarding, doing character design, stuff like that. Out of our friend group, everybody knew that me and my collaborator are the biggest Turtles fans, so we got the chance.
His name.
His name is Dimmy Maharis.
Yep.
And we work together and do all of our things together.
Yep.
And so we sent the portfolio in, and the guy that looked at it was like, well, he's close. It's about 80% there. And so all of our friends started to clown us and make fun of us that we were never going to be good enough. And we just said, the heck with it. We're going to tell our stories. We're going to dig this trench at 80%. We're going to sit in it. And that's what it's going to be. We're going to be 80% Studios. And, we're not going to let anybody tell us how to do things. We're going to do things in our own way, in our own voice. Because when it comes to art, there's no right or wrong way to do it.
Well, you've certainly established a niche and a direction. And you started out doing, obviously, self-published stuff. And you might want to talk a little bit about your progression.
Sure, yeah. We've been self-publishing since 2010. Dimmy and I met in 2008. And then we put out our first comic book, Gutter Town, which came out in about 2010. And this was a love letter to all the cyberpunk stuff that we love. We're huge into Blade Runner. And we wanted to make something that was based in Seattle, the environment that we were in. And so we put out 5 issues. There's a few more, and they're about 2 best friends who set out to become the best in an underground music fighting scene.
You can let them stay up for a while so people can get a look.
Music fighting scene called Beat Fighter, where they use music to battle against each other in a world where music is illegal. And people will come and they'll dance and bet, and what they dance to is the sound of 2 opposing styles coming together to create something new. And so that was the first thing that we did. And then we published another one called Dallas Merchant, which is kind of like a supernatural tattoo occult adventure, which is like Big Trouble Little China meets Indiana Jones a little bit. And we kind of had these different properties for the first 10 years of our career as to where we made comics, and we would just go to conventions, comic book stores, just make our comics, just sell them. And then over COVID is really when we kind of decided to take what had been a hobby and turn it into a business and turn it into a way that we were able to make a living.
Well, meanwhile, you were living and breathing comic books on every level because you worked at the now late lamented Xanadu in Seattle.
I did.
And you were, you had some kind of title there, and you were seeing new comics, and you were meeting comic book professionals in the store because Seattle is a hub for artists.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very fortunate to work at Xanadu Comics, and I was fortunate to work at a comic book store since I was 15, or so.
Yeah.
So that was really helpful. But when I moved to Seattle when I was 21, I cleaned toilets for about a month, and then I got a job at Xanadu Comics, which is one of the oldest stores in the whole country. And it was the way that I met people. Like you said, I got to meet comic book creators. The whole Pacific Northwest is a huge, hub for comic book people and just artists in general. And it was because of that I met Dimmy. It was because of that I met the guy who taught me how to color, how I got into the industry. All of it I met through the people.
Did you meet Dimmy at the store?
I did. I did.
Was he a customer?
No, he was an artist who was looking for a writer. And I'm sure for anyone who's listening, if you have been a creative person and you maybe aren't the greatest at art, but you had a story, it's hard to find somebody who's willing to draw your story, especially if that's not something that they came up with. And so it was very rare for an artist to look for a writer. But he came in, and I didn't tell him that I was interested in making comics. I sent him away. I told him other places to go, and he came back 2 weeks later, and he said he couldn't find anybody, to hang out with and work. And so I was like, all right, universe, then I guess that this is the sign. And
but what was he doing?
He had put out a few small comics that were actually based on traditional stories that he heard from his grandmother. My buddy Dimmy
you have to explain. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So, but he had originally given me these. He had published comics. They were small little comics, and that was a huge thing.
Mini comics.
Yeah, little mini comics to see somebody, and he actually had like a whole comic book that was of one of his superhero characters that he made that we actually used years later. But I was really impressed.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, he has, stories and stuff like that.
Well, explain the background, because that'll lead into what you're doing currently and how you've established a kind of a rock star status.
Yeah, a little bit. So Dimmy is a third-generation storyteller from Chickaloon, which is a very small village in Alaska. And it's about an hour and a half north from where Anchorage is. And his mom and his grandmother were both clan storytellers. And so he got to grow up.
When you say clan storytellers, he was a native Alaskan, like indigenous.
Yes, Alaska Native, indigenous. His grandmother is actually the one who started the whole Chickaloon tribe. It's a rather newish tribe, but it's there. It's by a place called Moose Creek in Alaska, which is really cool.
Very famous Moose Creek.
So yeah, which is and it's a beautiful place up there. It's really cool. They've got a ton of land, and so growing up, Dimmy got to hang out at his grandma's house, which was kind of the hangout for all of the family. And they would come, and he would sit at the table, at the coffee table, and drink coffee and hang out and listen to Grandma talk and tell stories.
Would she tell stories?
And she would tell
Was
stories.
Like a formal thing, or just like a casual be around the campfire?
Both.
Okay.
Both. She was the official storyteller, and she had been told these stories that were passed down from her grandparents. And it's cool because these are stories that are thousands of years old that exist, that come from the land that he grew up on.
So a mythology.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it was something that when he was about 8, he discovered comics. And talk about mythology, and it really ties in together. Yeah. And so his first collaboration in the comics that he gave me when I first met him were these cool little mini comics based on traditional stories from his tribe that his grandma told him that were called Yane Da'a. And this meant ancient teachings. And it's all about how we as humans, we learn through stories. When you teach a child, when you teach a human anything, it has to have a narrative. You have to have some kind of story to make it stick in somebody's head.
Now, was there a visual element to the stories, or was it completely linear and verbal?
So these stories were never drawn or written down. This was not an okay thing, and his grandma giving him the freedom to be the first one to draw and depict these characters was a huge deal. And of course, because Dimmy loves the Ninja Turtles, he drew them like Ninja Turtles. They're all anthropomorphic characters. But that goes really well with a lot of Alaska Native stories, as they are all anthropomorphic. They are from a time when humans and animals could communicate. And that brings us to the current project that we are working on, which is called Chickaloonies, which is all about a time when humans and animals could speak to each other. And they're about two Alaska Native best friends who set on a quest to become the greatest storytellers the world's ever seen. And we have 2 books that we made. We have 2 adventures, and our story follows Mr. Yelly, who's the pointy-haired one, who speaks at great lengths at all times.
Looks very much like out of some kind of an anime or manga.
A little bit, yes. Yes, we're big into like Dragon Ball,
Yeah.
But Mr. Yelly, his superpower
But he's got
is
that turtle's physiognomy.
Exactly, yes. Yep, and he's got the cool Alaska Native sunglasses. And then his best friend is Sasquatch Emoji, who speaks only in emojis. And so they use their powers of words and pictures combined.
Is there a possibility that we could get inside the book a little bit?
Absolutely.
Is there a way to hold it up?
Yeah,
So
let's see if we can
find
get
a good
little bit.
page?
Yes, it's a good one. Right?
Because you have the spotlight, because you're doing the coloring in this.
Yeah, so actually the cool thing is we both do all aspects of the book.
Okay.
So we both write it, we both will do, I'll do breakdowns, and I will kind of lay the whole book out, and then Dimmy will go over and draw it, and then...
breakdowns, you mean like little thumbnail sketches?
Yeah, like little thumbnail
what
sketches.
happens on a page?
Yeah, what happens on a page. And so I try to give him a blueprint to follow, and so then he'll execute, and then we'll pass the pages back and forth, and we both will work on it. And so that's why this book specifically has been different than all of our other books before, is because just like our characters, it's truly collaborative.
Now, is it a traditional way of working? I mean, obviously you're doing this all on computer, right?
We are doing everything on
Now,
computer.
are you scanning stuff in? Are you scanning actual pencils in?
Not anymore. For Chickaloonies, this book we did totally on the iPad. This is our first one digital. All of the other books we did draw it on paper and then scan it in. But what we have is kind of a very unusual routine and unusual relationship for people who make comics. A lot of comics are made by people who've never met each other. And it's very rare that people are in the same area, the same state, to be able to collaborate and change things on the fly. And like we have a studio in the International District in Seattle, which is where we hang out and make comics. And it's amazing to be able to just throw ideas back and forth, things change. I mean, this book here, it evolved just out of 2 friends hanging out, wanting to make comics. You've got 2 guys who, one uses words, one uses pictures, but it's in the combination. In the collaboration.
Now, quickly and briefly, since we're running out of time, tell us about how you tour then.
So we always wanted to be in a band, and we weren't cool enough, so we decided to take comics and took them on the road. Because nobody needs a comic, but we need stories. And so we thought that part of telling a story is the live aspect. And that's a huge part with Alaska Native storytelling, is to be able to tell a story live. So Dimmy made a costume, and I wear a costume, and we have animation and music, and we tell a story from the Chickaloonies book. In each book.
You act it out?
Yes, I act it out. In each book, there's a storyteller that will tell the boys a new story. And so just like a band, we're beginning to build this repertoire of stories. And so not only do we get to go tell stories, but we teach. And we teach
you do
students.
this in schools across the country?
Schools, museums, libraries, all sorts of places. We're trying to, not that libraries were never not cool, but make people realize how awesome they are. Get kids and people to gather there, tell stories, share their story, and inspire people.
I got to stop you now because
their
we
voice.
just ran out of time.
Oh, okay.
And I really appreciate you coming down on very short notice.
Of course.
Thanks for coming by, and good luck with your new pursuits. I'm glad we were able to catch up.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate it being here. Thank you.
We're here with another artist, Julz Roth. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
It's great that we could get you here, as I met you through a show that we had at Common Fence Point in Portsmouth when you were participating with the group from Gallery X out of New Bedford.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what inspired you to go into art?
So art, I have been creating, I think my whole life. Art has been the practice of creating has always been available to me as a space to go to, especially for processing. I feel like it's important for me to like dive into creativity. So that's what it's been there for. And I feel like as long as I can remember, when I was a little kid, if I got in trouble or something, my mom would like be like, go to your room and make, I'd like color. I had nothing to do, right? So I couldn't go outside. I couldn't like talk to my friends. I'd just like sit in my room and make art.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I've been creating for a long time, and through all of life, art has always been there for me. So that.
And you went to school for art therapy?
Yeah. When my daughter was young, I went back to school, and at first I thought I wanted to do fashion design, and then I started understanding psychology and art and the connections of the two, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I dove right into expressive arts therapy. I went to Lesley, got my graduate degree, graduated in 2012, and focused on my expressive arts practice for, pretty much since then. I had been practicing that.
Can you give people who aren't aware an idea of what expressive art therapy is?
Sure. So expressive arts therapy is really, it is a form of therapeutic support, much like counseling or if you were to go see a therapist, except maybe instead of sitting and talking, you're actually creating. It's like a time where you're able to, enter a safe space and create from your heart and from yourself to just release and let go. And I specifically say expressive arts because it's not just drawing or painting. It could look like dance, it could look like writing, it could look like screaming, it could look like whatever expression you want to express to let yourself release. And it's been an incredibly wonderful healing tool for myself and for a lot of people that I've worked with. So if you're not familiar, I suggest, if it's inspiring, to go check it out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fascinating because sometimes you can only go far with talk therapy.
Words have limits, and I think that it's really interesting how many adults think that it's only for children, and yet, I think it's the adults that need it the most. Children are actively connected into a creative force, and I think as adults we we lose it because life tells us where we have to be and what we have to do and how we have to be focused, making money and
quite
taking care of
daunting
them.
to be faced with a blank sheet of paper and told to, or suggested or offered a chance to put something down, whether it's words or pictures.
Yeah. I would say the number one thing I've heard most, especially from adults, is, "Oh, I don't draw. I can't do that. I don't draw."
Oh,
and it's like, "Oh, but we're not talking about drawing."
I can't draw a straight line.
Yes. And actually, expression has nothing to do with drawing. It has to do with just letting yourself be free and giving yourself permission, which I think that actually is what becomes the catalyst for people making change. When we're able to awaken something in ourselves, let something come out, it's amazing what else will flow from it. So, yeah.
Now, you have brought several examples of your work. You're just back
Yes.
from a show in Miami, so you're able to have everything together.
Yeah.
Do you want to start talking about your progression here?
Sure. So these pieces are from my process, my art, coming straight from my heart. And I would say each one of these paintings here is its own meditation, and each one of their names kind of corresponds to a concept that I was thinking about and exploring in the process of creating it. And I work on paintings simultaneously, and they take a while to dry, so in between drying times I'll work on another one. And these 4 that are up here, they actually started, they were born around the same time, and they all came after this one. I'll share this one first. So most people want to see this painting like this because we're used to seeing paintings like this.
No, you have to hold it so Myris can get it
Like
there.
this.
Yep.
Can you see
You
it?
can see
Okay.
it there. Yep.
However, it was created like this. So I often will have, I have this woman that I paint a lot. She's a representation of the divine feminine. And in this painting, they're the mermaids that are coming up to her and kind of whispering to her. They're sharing to her. And this was the first painting that started this whole series of work. So this painting is called Heart Song. They're kind of singing up from her heart and singing to her. And she's sideways because she's dreaming, and she's, that's where that one is. And from there, I go to this painting, which this painting is called Rhythmic Living. This one over here with the moons. Should I get up and look at them?
No,
Okay.
you can't because
Okay.
you're tied down.
Okay, so this one with the moons is called Rhythmic Living, and the concept is really about returning to nature's rhythms. And in the middle is a 6-pointed star, which I've been working with a lot. I work with sacred geometry and sacred symbolism, and that is in this painting because it is a very important symbol. It is has many, many layers, but one of which is the divine masculine and feminine and the union and the balance of both, which I included in this painting because it's part of finding balance, which I feel like currently the balance is a little bit off, just a tad. So that concept is rhythmic living, returning to the rhythms of the earth. The next one is entitled Grounding with the Tides with the big triangle, and finding peace through the waves that come through life. They come up and down. There's the, you don't want to get caught in the waves. Learning to surf is a thing, and I mean that metaphorically, but also surfing in life.
You have all sorts of symbolism going on in these things.
Yes.
Something like a lotus, and then the
Yes.
gem, and then the spiral.
Yeah.
Now, you're obviously dealing with spirituality a lot.
Yes. Yeah. I've always been interested in what lies beyond what we can see, and to knowing and connecting with the earth and with the cosmos. I've always felt really drawn to the skies and to the stars, and I'm a deeply spiritual person, and I think it's really important that we connect with that, not in a religious sense, but more in the ways that we find deeper meaning in life. I think working in mental health has really shown me that we don't really just have a crisis of mental health, we have a crisis of emotional health and emotional connection, where I think when we look around this country a lot, there's an emptiness that people are struggling with. And I think that comes from something bigger that we give meaning to, that we tap into, and an emotional connection that is not necessarily about our mental, but more about our heart space and the connection to the piece that we naturally have in us. It's just, are we activating it? So a lot of my work is about activating that. And these concepts of, how do we activate that? So the next big painting that came through is actually about that. It's called Awakening the Soul Star, and it's about connecting deeper to our soul and the connection of our heart. And the symbolism in this painting, there's a spiral that comes from the heart that's going up through the chakras. And the Soul Star is actually a chakra that isn't talked about a lot. It rests, they say, about 12 inches above our head. And that's the space we have soul memory. And that's a place that we can tap into that if we are open and seeking. And this painting is about that journey. And then the next painting that's in that set of 4 is this one, which again, you notice the stars in almost all of these. This one also has another, the star is also known as the Merkaba, which is a symbol used in meditation. It's thought of as the divine chariot, which we can use in our meditations so that we can, becomes a focal point for focus, and it can spin often. And the idea is that when we're able to close our eyes and focus on this shape and it's spinning, it takes us into a deeper space in ourselves. And so that's what this painting in the middle of her face is, the Merkaba, and she's sort of focused on the Merkaba, and then around her is like the day and the night, and below and above, and these sort of concepts of duality that are going on around her. And this painting is called Transcending Duality, and it's really a question on ways that we can not get trapped in all of the emotions that kind of can pull us down, because any moment we have an opportunity to be in a space of peace when we're able to awaken that in ourselves. It's a choice. It doesn't matter what's going on around us. Mm-hmm. And it's a tall order, easy said, hard to be done. But so that's what this piece is about.
So are there any specific spiritual traditions that you're coming from or working with, or is it kind of a conglomerate of different practices and thought processes?
So my mother is Jewish and my father is Christian. Neither of them were practicing ever, really, mm-hmm. anything. And they both are kind of like very open, kind of hippie parents, I mm-hmm. guess I would say, if I had to put them in a genre. Mm-hmm. But they were both, they got separated when I was young, but they both were very open, and my mother especially, to like, just choose your path. I didn't grow up going to synagogue. I know a little bit about Judaism because I sought it out, but I also learned about other religions, and I also learned what religion has done, and I think that as it's a duality. On one hand, I think it's very, very important that we have spaces where people come together in community and with spirit and with themselves and with each other. It's essential. Mm-hmm. Yet peace is essential, and thinking that one is over another, or one is better than another, or one way is right, and we get lost, I think, in that. And sure. I think that there's a lot of ancient wisdom that has been lost along the way or corrupted along the way. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my work is about remembering the peace that exists inside of ourselves and the peace that exists around us and that comes from nature and comes from the earth, and that we return to and we remember, and awakening it in myself and supporting other people on their journey so they can find it too.
Well, thank you. With that, we've already run out of time.
Thank you.
And that's the end of another episode of Art Matters. I'm your host, Wayne Quackenbush, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.